ดีครับสวัสดีทุกท่านนะครับท่านผู้มีเกียรติที่มาร่วมงานนี้นะครับก็ขอเสียงปรบมือวอร์มอัพเซสชั่นนี้ของการเริ่มต้นนะครับการพูดไทยจะจบลงเพียงเท่านี้นะครับวันนี้เราจัดแบบ international นะครับเราได้รับเกียรติจาก professor Michael Pitt นะครับจากที่ UCL นะครับผมขออนุญาตเริ่มเข้าสู่เซสชันนะครับการเสวนา
แนะนำตัวพิธีกร
ได้ผมแนะนำเป็นภาษาอังกฤษเลยนะผมดร.สิทธิพรนะครับยินดีที่ได้มาเป็นเรียกว่าอะไรโฆษกmoderator ในวันนี้นะครับโอเคครับผมขออนุญาตเข้าสู่ช่วงที่การนะครับ Good evening ladies and gentlemen distinguished guests Siam Pivat Academy faculty member alumni and student or participant thank you for sharing your valuable time with us today my name is Dr. Sithiporn Israsak it's my honor to be a moderator for today's session Welcome to our Architecture and Design for Society lecture series. This event is an integral part of celebration commemorating the 90th anniversary of the Faculty of Architecture, Chulalongkorn University. There will be speakers from various fields sharing their experiences and knowledge about design and research as a principle and case studies on social issues that contribute to social benefit. On behalf of Faculty of Architecture, we would like to thank Sakun Thai Company, who are the main sponsor in organizing these event activities. Before we start the program, may I have honor of the Dean of the Faculty of Architecture, Assistant Professor Sarayut Sapsu, to give an opening remark on this occasion.
Good afternoon and welcome to a wonderful evening today. This is going to be outside, but today we have a special lecture. Special gift because it's special because in fact this lecture is not in our programs. We just put it in 2 weeks time because Professor Michael Pitt to visit my office 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, right?
Yep.
Yeah, 2 weeks ago that he is on the way to Australia, and he said that he had to come back because he has transit flight from Bangkok. So we discussed that why not you give us a wonderful lecture today because it's quite special that we want to know in terms of the facility management, and I think that half of the audience today is a fan club of facility management and want to know about the field of facility management. So this is good time for us that we have it's our pleasure to have Professor Michael with us here. So I think that you will enjoy this lecture, and I think at the end we have time for discussion that you may want to ask about the things in Thailand and exchange experience in terms of facility management. I think.
Right, let me introduce you first.
All right. Okay.
You're in a hurry, right?
Carry on.
Right. Thank you, Didi, for the opening session. Today, again, we are pleased to have Professor Michael Pitt to be our speaker. He's currently a Director of Teaching and Learning at the Bartlett School of Sustainable Construction in Faculty of Built and Environment. Professor Michael Pitt he is involved in property research and teaching since 1990. He is a fellow of Royal Institute of Chartered Surveyor. He served on several facilities management committees over the years, right? Right. He is also a visiting professor in many countries and editor of Journal of Facility Management. Not yet.
Not yet.
The topic of today. For today's topic in this session, In Through the Outdoor, a practical journey through the world of facility management. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Professor Michael Pitt.
So it's my go now. Thank you, Sithiporn, and thank you, Dean,
for your kind introduction as well. Oh my goodness, this has not worked. And then we'll have to fix this. Can we put it on so that we don't get a cheat on the next slides? Oh, what happened there? Let me just chat amongst yourselves. We need to get rid of that. And then we need to go in here. Just lose that, however. Ooh. No, that's it. Slideshow from beginning. Oh, it's not touch sensitive. There we go. Okay, we'll try again. This is what I love when you do talks about technology and the technology lets you down. I've had this so many times. So this is a bit of an experiment. And the experiment is this. As the Dean has quite rightly said, I'm on my way to see my daughter in Australia, and I get asked if I'll do a talk at Tudor. Of course, I'm honoured to do a talk at Tudor. But this is a talk that I was planning on doing for the first time in Hong Kong in about 1 month. So it gets revealed in Bangkok first. As a result of that, it's maybe not as fine-tuned as I would have liked. Like the mistake on the second line. So, why in through the outdoor? Because I'm going to talk to you today about the different ways that we use buildings. How many of you here, if you wave at me if you're in facilities management? Okay, so that's quite a few. That's good. Because if you're all architects, I'll just get booed off. And that's happened before. That happened in Chongqing. I was almost chased out of the university because architects are very different people. FM people, we're practical. We like to see stuff done. We like design. We like pretty things, but we need them to work properly. So in through the outdoor is those of you that like heavy rock music, British heavy rock music from the 1960s and 70s will know that is the name of a rock album by a band called Led Zeppelin. And I bet I'm the only person in the room that knew that. In 1979, I went to see Led Zeppelin on their In Through the Outdoor tour in the UK. I'm not going to pretend that was where I got any of the ideas from. But the idea of people using the building in a way that you didn't intend is what this is all about. Because if there are 1,000 users of a building, there will be 1,000 different ways that the building is used. People will come in through the outdoor. I've seen, not long ago I saw 2 people have a fight because somebody was coming in through the outdoor and bashed into somebody who was doing the right thing and going out. Human beings don't behave the way you want them to unless you manage them carefully. So I want to have a quick look at what FN is first, for those of you that didn't put your hand up, so you can understand a little bit about what the little group here that all threw their hands up and said, we love FM, facilities management. So there's a group of you that love facilities management, there's a group of you maybe that are not so sure what it is. So let's have a look at that. Twitter, by the way, I've sort of stopped using because they've started calling it X and I can't get used to the new name. Did that automatically flip forward? Because if it did, I'm in trouble. So I just wanted to, academics, by the way, do not make very much money from books. So this is not about me making money. I think we get like 50 pence from every book we sell. But if you wanted to take a look at that, this is the 2022 book that we put out on digital twins. Digital twins is basically just a 3D representation of a unit, of a building, of something, not unique to buildings. But when we put this Digital Twins in the Built Environment Fundamentals, Principles and Applications book out, so there's quite a few authors here. There's 2 of us from UCL and the others are all from Cambridge University, which is a minor university north of London. So between us, we put that together. The main complaint was that people found it quite hard to apply, because digital twins is quite a tough subject if you're not familiar with it. So what we've done is we've written a new volume, Digital Built Asset Management, which is being published by Edward Elgar this year. We've just got the proofs approved by the publishers, and that's just edited by Associate Professor Kuchin Liu and myself. So that's available soon at a bookstore near to you. Very quickly, this is where I come from. And what I love about this is we're getting close to our 200th anniversary at UCL now. And now I appreciate that for some countries 200 years is nothing, but 200 years is quite something for a university in England, because there's Oxford and there's that place called Cambridge I talked about, which had been around for a long, long time, 1,000 years plus. And for many, many years in England, you had to fit into a very, very narrow bracket to go to a university. And then UCL came along in 1827, 200 years ago, and suddenly, slowly, anybody could go to university. Let's be clear, I would never have been allowed to go to Oxford, Cambridge, because I wasn't born rich. So you had to be in a very, very narrow bracket to go to Oxbridge 500 years ago. So the beauty of UCL is we freed up the world for people to go to university and learn. And for that, 200 years ago, people laughed at UCL. It's incredible. If you look at the history books, people wrote poems to make fun of the idea that anyone could learn. That's hard to believe in 2024, that people thought it was funny that people wanted to learn just to learn. And that is one of the joys of life, is it not? Just to learn because you can. And that was what was denied from people. So very quickly, this is what the Nazis did to UCL during what we call the Second World War in the 1940s. So UCL was bombed by the Nazis, and I wasn't around then, just to be clear, in the 1940s. The staff moved all over the UK. Some moved to Wales. Some of them hated the idea of moving to Wales so much they resigned, I'm told. But UCL continued, and here we are approaching our 200th anniversary. This is our beautiful main Wilkins designed building. If that looks familiar, Trafalgar Square. There's a building just like that in Trafalgar Square, designed by Wilkins, which is the famous square in the centre of London where everything happens, with Nelson on the top of a column. So this is the quad, where in our summer months, which generally tends to be about 3 days of sunshine in London, I'm afraid, students sit there while they can. For those of you who've been to London know what I mean. It is probably, it nearly always is, and they sit there and they do work. On sunny days in London, all the squares around UCL are filled with students sitting in groups studying. It's beautiful, it really is. Okay, so to the main business. Those of you that don't know facilities management, the management of services is the core FM operation. It's what we do. So just to give you an idea, if you come into this building, everything that you see around you, your facilities management people are responsible for. The Dean was kind enough to tell me that the cost of developing it, I'm not going to repeat it, it's a lot of money to develop this wonderful, laid back, it feels like a space for learning, amphitheatre, whatever we call it. It's certainly not a lecture theatre, it's something beyond that. So what you've created, I love. But the people who are responsible for looking after this are the facilities managers. The people who are responsible for the lighting, the heating, you don't have that. The air conditioning are the facilities managers. The floor, facilities managers. So we provide services in a number of different ways. Oh, you've just seen it all now, so that's the end of the lecture then. So it's about managing these multiple services through a supply chain, focusing on the core business. So the reason we're focusing on the core business is that's what we are subservient to. So if we don't have a core business, we can't have facilities management. One of the first things, and again, I'm mainly talking to the people who don't understand facilities management, one of the first things that we say to new facilities management students day one, because they think, oh, property management and facilities management are the same thing. They are not the same thing. They are completely different. And my favourite way of explaining this to people who don't get it, who don't understand it, is that a property manager will preserve the property at all costs, regardless of expense. They will manage and look after the property. A facilities manager will knock it down if it makes financial sense for the organisation that occupies it. So as facilities managers, we need an organisation that's occupying. So if you take the university out of this building, I can't do facilities management because I need a client, I need an occupier to serve. I'm not managing a building, I'm managing resources, services, and a building on behalf of an occupier. And that, focused on the core business, is the biggest thing that you need in order to understand what FM is all about. And what it means is, and I say this to scare all my master's students day one, it means we have to have knowledge of business operations and strategy, supply chains, and just about anything else that you can think of. And it means that facilities management is probably one of the most difficult jobs you can ever do. And that's because if I want to go and work for a bank, and I just spoke to a lady who works for a bank now, you've got to understand banking. You've got to sit in a room with people who've been doing banking for the last 40 years. If you've just come from working for a supermarket doing facilities management, you step into a banking environment, suddenly you need to be an expert on banking. And if you're not, you need to be really quick at becoming an expert on banking. Because you need to understand what they're talking about, where they want to go, and you need to be able to work with them. But you're delivering support services. So this knowledge is massive. It's huge. What we need, I'm going to try flicking that to see if it won't do it again. So, supply chain management, when we include things like information, finance, relational aspects of supply chains, it becomes multidisciplinary, multifunctional sets of activities that deal not only, fish cakes, not only with the more physical activities, but also behavioural and intangible dimensions like relationship management. And the first time you read that through, you think, what? Especially if English is your second language, I apologise. But pick it through slowly. We're talking about a supply chain that deals with information, finance, the relationships between organisations, and you've got this multidisciplinary, lots of different services. You can have catering, cleaning, security, lighting technicians, all of these different people, multifunctional sets of activities, not just physical, but behavioural. Security, is there a fight in the corridor? There's a fight in the corridor because the lighting's not good enough. It's all connected. And intangible, again, I'm conscious that not everybody's maybe going to know the word intangible. Intangible is a word that means hard to measure or even impossible to measure. So intangible dimensions like relationship building. So how do you work out the value of a relationship in a supply chain? And relationship in FM is critical. I mean, I come across, I'm writing books on digital twins, talking about digital. My master's program is digital innovation. But the behavioural aspects of FM is still where the key added value exists. It's still the difference between walking up to a member of staff in the facilities management team and then dealing with you well or badly. Because it's all about the chain. It's all about the chain, the handover. The services that we deliver are like one big connected chain. And you know what can happen to chains if you stretch them or if you don't maintain them. See if we can make that stay still. So, I keep this slide because I always remember. Has anybody heard of Danny Then? No. I worked with Danny Then when I was a junior lecturer, like forever ago. And he worked at Hong Kong Poly U, he worked at Queensland University Technology in Brisbane. He worked at Heriot Watt University with me. And Danny was a very focused, very key person when I was a junior lecturer. And he defined strategic purchasing in the context of facilities management. And when we talk about strategic purchasing, it makes the point that we're not just buying toilet rolls per se. We're doing more than that. Focusing on the needs of the client through careful management of the supply chain gives you issues to look at, the nature of the buyer-supplier relationship, the management of the relationship, and how FM purchasing contributes towards core organisational success. So the supply chain is complicated. You don't just need knowledge of the core business, you need knowledge of the supply chain and each of the services. So this is the point in lecture 1 for master's students who've just committed the rest of their lives to facilities management, where some of them feel like walking out. Because I'm going to tell them at this point, you could have 150 services to understand, 150 services that you need to connect together, and you still need to understand the core business as much as the people who are running that. So a guy called Gronrus defined a service. There's lots of definitions of service, I just like this one. A service is a process of more or less intangible, it's that word again, intangible, hard to measure, activities that normally, but not necessarily always, take place in interactions between customer and service employees, and or physical resources, or goods, or systems of the service provider which are provided as solutions to customer problems. I don't agree with all of that, but the key things to take out of that is that word there. The key thing is that word interactions. Because interactions are those moments of truth, the point at which FM service can be added or taken away. The point at which the chain that I talked about a minute ago can be broken. So, if you deliver a set of services, let's say you go to a hotel and you have the most amazing time at the swimming pool, you go into the restaurant, you have the most amazing time at the swimming pool, and you're thinking, oh, this hotel is just the best place I've ever been to. You get into bed, you wake up in the morning and you're all itchy because they've got bed bugs. You go down to breakfast, it's the best breakfast you've ever had, you have another swim in the pool. The thing you're going to remember is the bed bugs, right? I'm going to remember the rest of it. And it's exactly the same in FM. The chain cannot be broken. And it's worse than that. The chain level has to be kept, has to be maintained. There's no point in me starting at the beginning of the day, driving you out in a Rolls-Royce motor car, if at the end of the day I'm going to deliver you in whatever the opposite is. I'm going to offend a motor manufacturer. If you deliver somebody in a Ford at the end, it's going to be different. So you need to be maintaining, let's say, a Toyota throughout. There's no point in being high at one end and low at the other. And essentially there, you're breaking the chain by not maintaining the standard. For those of you that are still with me, because this is like a crash course in FM, and it's really hard to do that because this is meant to be an entire module. For those of you that are still with me, this bit here at the end,
solutions to customer problems isn't right for FM, because we don't just deal in customer problems, because we are strategic, because we're not property managers. We're not going to do something just because the property needs it. We're going to do it because the core business needs it, which means we can provide solutions to problems that they don't know they have, and we can provide solutions to things that are not problems. Now, in a sense, you might say, well, if you don't have a problem, how can you have a solution? But what we can do is we can add value to the business in ways that the business is not thought about. So I'll give you a silly example, which is out of date, but it's good to make the point. So one of the things that facilities management is sometimes measured in is we talk about man hours. We talk about the number of hours that a person is able to work, the effectiveness of that work. But let's say if you go into the office and you sit at your desk for 3 hours, to get your lunch, you are forced to leave the building, walk for 45 minutes, buy a sandwich, walk back for 45 minutes. You've got an hour and a half out of your working day. Old thinking was, in facilities management, let's have somebody walk around with a sandwich basket and you can buy a sandwich and never leave your desk. So you can all see the problem with that. But in old thinking, old FM thinking, old business management thinking, that saving of an hour and a half was added to productive time. Because what we know now is people get tired and they need the break, they need the walk to stay healthy and fit. But you can still add value in ways like that. Giving people healthy things that they don't necessarily know they need. Providing orange juice maybe. Giving people a vitamin C top-up. Healthy catering supplied is a way of dealing with a customer problem that the customer doesn't even know it's got. So what we're talking about in terms of services is a process consisting of activities or a series of activities. We break down, and I'm just going to try and make that not move. We break down our services into itty little bits, stuff that we do in order to make it manageable through a thing called process engineering. And again, master students, when they're first starting, they hear the word engineering, they think, oh, this is going to be difficult. But what it is simply a way of saying you can break stuff down. That's so annoying. You can break stuff down into small parts to manage it. You can take bits out and the machine will still work. So those little bits, an example would be, you'd be familiar with AirAsia, I'm guessing, yeah? All of you have probably flown AirAsia, my favourite airline in the world, and I'm not joking. Seemingly quite unpopular in Malaysia. I think they're great. Those low fares airlines have changed. On the innovation scale, there's a scale that leads up to transformational, business model transformational. So the Southwest Airlines, the original American Southwest Airlines business model, transferred, used by EasyJet, Ryanair in the UK, Ryanair in Ireland, EasyJet in the UK, AirAsia in this whole sort of region, all depends upon process engineering. It all depends upon making sure that those planes are kept in the sky and not on the floor, not on the tarmac. A plane in the sky is making money, a plane on the floor is losing money. So it's all about how quickly they can get those planes in the air. So when they come to work out how they can clean a plane more effectively, it's all about process engineering. This is FM in the aviation industry. It's just the same. It's just planes. And a plane is just a space. It's just a service. And inside that plane we can deliver catering, toilet facilities, service, all of those different things, health and safety. All of that is like a micro FM environment. No different. You can learn so much by studying that. Our services are consumed and produced more or less at the same time. And the customer participates as a producer as well. So I'm conscious that I'm going a bit slowly, actually. So there are, as I said, there are tangible, intangible elements to a service. You can't keep them in stock. So if you've got a security guard that's standing, or a receptionist that's standing behind a desk, they can't keep their hello, how are you in stock. It's produced at the time you step up and ask for it. If you don't come in, there's no service. You produce it and you consume it. So it's very different to a good, very different to something you buy, very different to this clicker that doesn't love me today. So again, they're spent if they're not used, so things like aircraft seats. To customers, it's the visible part of the service that matters. But sometimes it's hard to evaluate what you're not aware you're experiencing. And why does that matter? Because your services need to create or add value. Any FM service that you're producing has to create or add value. So it's in that interaction between the service provider and the customer that value is created, and where that interaction is unsatisfactory, the chain breaks and it's not. But the thing is, if you don't know what you're experiencing, if you don't know that the service has got maybe intangible bits hidden from you, your feedback on it is not going to be positive, is it? So in a sense, facilities management is a victim of its own success. Because if you're really good at FM, nobody notices it. Our job is not to be seen. Our job is to hide in the toilet. Our job is to hide in the kitchen. I wish I hadn't used toilet, by the way. Our job is to hide in the kitchen and not be seen. To deliver the service seamlessly without the need for recognition. So unlike goods, the value is only, going over it again, the value is only produced if you choose to use a service. So you've got heating and you've got catering, very different. Heating, you use it but you don't know, you're not aware of it. Heating, by the way, is when things are hot. You don't get that in Thailand very often, except in the north. Catering, you need to actually decide to use it in order for it to become a service. So value creation in FM, right service, right place, right time, right cost, right way. Right. So services themselves can be defined as process consumption rather than output consumption. It gets a bit more complicated. I'm not sure if this is necessarily critical for the purposes of where I'm going. But they're not physical in nature, they're normally at least partly produced and consumed simultaneously. And then you get these quality dimensions. And this is quite important because where I'm going at the end, and getting there very slowly, is that everybody experiences services in a different way. No two people are the same. In London, I used to share an office. Somebody mentioned that they'd met Lexi Marmot. Does anybody else know Lexi Marmot? Okay, so she used to be, she's now a retired professor of facility management at UCL. Lexi and I used to share an office. We weren't the best of friends, I'll be honest. But I used to come into the building and the man behind the desk, Michael, also called Michael, used to play a game. When you had your card around your neck, as you walked up to the entrance point, just before you opened the gate with your card, Michael behind the desk would press the button, and then you'd think, for a split second, why did the door open before? And then you'd realise he'd opened it. And you'd look up and he'd be giggling. And that became a game. I'd see if I could get in before he noticed me. So I'd rush in and try and get to the gate one day Lexi told me, I wish that man would stop playing that silly bloody game with me. And I realised then that what I loved, she hated. So I thought that's incredible, because that means that he's not he's not being able to adjust his service, his reception service, to what she needs. Why? Because she scowled a lot. So I can imagine that she didn't hide her displeasure. So why did that carry on? And I never really understood why that, because his work to me was so good. I used him as an example just so many times. And so you get these moments of truth between the customer and the service provider, these buyer-seller interactions, these service encounters where you can succeed or fail. My journey, that's the first time I've used that word, my journey through facilities management, my journey through UCL was a big positive for me because of Michael's interaction. My journey started stepping in through the doors and wondering whether I was going to beat him to the gate. Other people's journeys start as they step through the door and they wonder whether their coffee is going to be hot enough. I don't drink coffee. I'm different. Everybody's journey starts in a different place, and guess what? It goes in a different direction. Everybody has a different reason for being where they are. And that matters in facilities management, because there's no one size fits all service in facilities management. And then conversely, the facilities management people here are thinking, yeah, but I get 20,000 people coming through my building every week, and there is no way I can provide 20,000 services delivered as they want. So there's a truth in that. There is a truth in that. But that's what we have to try and do. That's the aspiration, that's the aim, to deliver a service that everyone's going to be happy with. And what we tend to do, we tend to accept that we'll shoot for that, but we'll always fall short. So it's about trying to find a way to actually deliver that. Really quickly, we tend to split services into technical and functional, but I'm just going to skip over that. Right. Let's skip over that and that. Can I just ask how long I've been talking now? How many? 40. Oh, my goodness. Where's City Porn? Were you serious about 35, or can I carry on? Because I haven't even got to my point yet. Just have, I don't know, I should have brought beers and thrown them out. Right, so have a look at this pentathlon framework of innovation. I love this because it's really simple, really easy to use. Goffin and Mitchell, 2010. This is how we get ideas. I've used this at the Ministry of Defence in London for a decade. Really simple system of idea generation. And look at this. What's important? Innovation. Running through the whole thing. And what's the foundation? People. Not digital models. Because that's what I talk about. That's what I write about. All of my students want to do building information modelling dissertations, please, sir. But that's because that's the really new bit. But the really important bit is people. Right, okay. Introducing the concept. I'm going to flip forwards and back. The concept of user pathways. Pathway is also a journey. We don't talk about this enough, I decided. And I spend a lot of time sort of getting towards it. So we always think about how can we better educate users in asset use. Everybody here has learned, or if you haven't learned, you either learned to ride a motorbike or drive a car, probably. Some of you might have learned to fly a plane. If you have, talk to me afterwards, that must be brilliant. But you've all learned to drive or ride some sort of vehicle. Somebody taught you how to do it, how to indicate, how not to hit other vehicles. We need to educate people how to ride buildings, how to drive buildings. But there are two main stakeholder groups here. There's you, the professional, and there's you, the user. So people need to be taught how to manage them effectively and also how to use them. So the managers then need to show people how to use buildings. So how to sit, where to sit, really fundamental things. But in a mixed asset class, we get into the... I found myself on a boat at Icon Siam the other night. Now, I confess I haven't been in yet, but it's a mixed asset class. And in that asset, there's a little bit of maximising spend. No, sorry. There's a lot of maximising spend. There's no point in somebody coming into that asset class if they're going to walk through and say, this is really pretty, unless they go and talk to their friends and their friends say, where did you go? They say, Icon Siam, and they go and spend money. So there's an element of word of mouth. But really, in mixed asset classes, how do we maximise spend? And I'm thinking pathways at the moment. I'm thinking how we designate pathways. How do we manage that user pathway to maximise that return? Same sort of thing. And can we sell a pathway or a journey rather than the asset itself? So let me just give you an example. Just going to try and stop this thing distracting me. How many of you have been to KLIA 2? Okay, it's about 5 maybe. Does anybody remember KLIA 2? That's Kuala Lumpur International Airport. Terminal 2, by the way. Does anybody remember it before they developed it? Before they developed it, it was basically a bus stop. It's basically a bus station. And it was wonderful, because they had the glitzy KLIA with the marble floors and the gateway to Malaysia. Okay, they built it in a funny place, a long way away from Kuala Lumpur. And as a result of that, a lot of airlines stopped flying there originally. But then they built this shed next door, and they created this bus station, which was quite incredible. And you think they've nailed this, because what do AirAsia want? No cost. They want you to pay 500 baht to fly between Bangkok and Kuala Lumpur, and they make their money how? How do they make their money? By charging you so little. And I can tell you that there are lots of different ways they make money, and they don't make it from the 500 baht. This is what it's about. What it is now, they've rebuilt it as a terminal that's got no really expensive infrastructure in it. A terminal that is not like KLIA 1. No glitzy walls, decoration, floors. It's basic. It's better than it was. And then right next to it, they have built the KLIA 2 shopping centre with hotels, places to go. They've created something of a destination next to the airport. That's still in a funny place. But if you go into it, I think there are people that are shopping in there that are not flying. The original concept of shops in airports was quite interesting, because it was subservient, it was secondary to the main purpose of the facility or the asset. So this is a mixed asset class now we're talking about, like Icon Siam, like Paragon, a mixed asset class that is changing continuously. So think about an airport where you've got airlines that want to fly and shops that want to make money, and then you've got an airport owner, facility manager, that has to try and manage this. So think of the stakeholder groups that you've got, and think of the different stakeholder requirements that you've got to deal with. The airline wants you to arrive at the airport really, really early. Check in really, really early. Go through security really, really early. Go to the gate really, really early. Sit at the gate, do not move. Go to the toilet at the gate, do not move from the gate. The moment the plane is ready for boarding, get on quickly. Don't lose anything, don't leave anything behind. Don't have anything on you that you could leave behind or that you might leave on the plane to make a mess. Have no bags. Sit down, shut up. When we arrive, get off. Do nothing apart from fly. The shops, driven by the requirement of the airport, what do they want? Think about this, it's the complete opposite. It's really exciting, isn't it? You come into an airport, I'm going on holiday, let's have a drink. The airline's thinking, don't drink, we don't want drunk people in the air. But you want people in the pub, spending money, drinking far too much beer, because after people have had beer, what do? Spend money. So they go to the shops and they've got 8 bags and they turn up at the gate and the airline's thinking, oh no, there's no room in the overhead bins, now we're going to have to start putting things. So there's a tension, you don't even have to go any further than shops and pubs versus the airlines as to what they want from the mixed-use asset. So that tension is really, really difficult. For the facilities manager, you've got to stop the fights going on between them. But that's mixed asset classes for you. So the current position, we've got facilities management combining the core business management to produce a mutually beneficial service that aligns with the core strategy. And that FM element adds value through the ability of the organisation to deliver the core business more efficiently. So we're like the cotton wool wrapped around the core business trying to make it work better. And this is what IKEA do. Is there an IKEA in Thailand? Yeah, good.
Exactly the root of why.
Yeah. This is all about getting you lost. Did you all know that? It's all about making you confused. They can't get you drunk. They would. But they confuse you. So you go in there and you want to come in and you want to buy something for your bedroom. You want to buy one thing. Not only do you have to walk through, there are ways. I got really angry one day in IKEA and said, how do I get out? And the woman was saying, you go around there. I said, no, where's the door? And she told me and I went straight out. So there are doors that you can use, fire exits basically. But they disorientate you using space syntax principles, if you want to read up on that, in order to stop you knowing where you are. You don't know which is north, south, east, west, where you are. No windows to give you any ideas as to what time of day it is. Like the casinos in Las Vegas. Let's make them think it's 2 o'clock in the morning. It's actually 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Yeah. So there's all sorts of things we can do in these places to control the user. These are just ways we can make the users spend more money. This is just an idea that IKEA had, and you can apply that with other things as well. I put EasyJet at the top and the duty free. What EasyJet used to do, they've stopped doing it now, to make you behave. When you turn up and you checked in, they'd give you a number. And they didn't have seat allocations in the beginning. It was free for all on the plane. And you've got a picture of 350 people fighting to get onto a plane. But they couldn't have that, so they controlled it by giving you a number. So if you were 1 to 50, you're first on. You've got a window seat. If you turn up a little bit later, you get 51 to 100, you've got an aisle seat. And if you're one of the last people on a small plane to get the last 50 tickets, you're between the 2 fat people in the middle, like me, between 2 people like me. So they managed people in the way, get people to behave in the way that they wanted. So what we're talking about here is to move from the marketing of an asset to the selling of a pathway. So in facilities management, we deliver pathways. We deliver routes for people when they enter a building. When people enter an office building, they're going somewhere to see someone. And they know that in advance. So in a sense, what we're trying to think about moving towards is not selling an experience within an office, because that's where I've been for the last 30 years, getting stuck not knowing exactly how that experience is enhanced for the 200 people that go through the building every week, but moving forwards in a way that we deliver a bespoke. Bespoke means, in case you don't know the word, delivered for you or you or you or you or you, specifically not for anyone else, journey through a facility. So you're selling the journey as an experience itself. And the service chain permutations are infinite. So it has to be a dynamic, ever-changing journey. Because halfway tonight, I was sitting waiting, the dean was in a meeting, we were sitting waiting, and the journey for me tonight through Tulip, brilliant example, was that I would sit in the dean's waiting room, I would meet the dean, I would come in here, and this would all work perfectly. And then I got a phone call from my family where my eldest daughter wanted to do a gender reveal on her 3-month pregnancy. So we had to sit there. My journey changed to one of my family screaming down a phone, sitting in the dean's waiting room. Unexpected things happen on your journey. So these service chain permutations are infinite. The only thing that was missing tonight was the champagne. That was disappointing. So, on these journeys, the levels need to be right. There's no point in giving me a Rolls Royce to take me back to my hotel tonight because I came in a Grab taxi. So it's understanding what you can control, and if you can't control it, you have to find a way. Moving away from this concept maybe of shopping centres or leisure centres to something like life centres. If you look at all the major shopping centres around the world, and yes, Icon Siam is the same, we won an award for Shopping Centre of the Year or something, Asian Shopping Centre of the Year, shouted on the website. But is it a shopping centre? Or is it more of a life centre? Do you know, the funny thing is, I don't know how to turn this clicking over off, because I've never turned it on, so I've no idea how to turn it off. It's more of a journey because people go for different reasons. But I mean, that's not new. The Icon Siam, when I go there, there's all sorts of different things. There are exhibitions, there are fantastic restaurants, I'm sure. There are shops that I can't afford to shop in. And that's the point. I'm not going to go there to buy a Rolex, but the person on the next table will. So it's about selling a journey that is not just one that I want, it's one that I can afford. There's no point in giving me a journey into a Rolex shop, because I can't afford it. I'm a professor at a university. And in London, that means badly paid, by the way. So as we move forward, within our facilities, we're talking about moving away from selling experiences to moving towards selling journeys. And how much does that apply? How much more does that apply to mixed asset classes like KLA, to like some of the amazing, what are currently called shopping centres in Bangkok, as I move towards calling these more life centres. So as these mixed-use centres replace city centres, they need to compete as such. Now you've got problems where they're in the same ownership. You need to find unique differentiators, the reasons for people to go to one and not the other. But if you take, I support Liverpool Football Club proudly. Thank you. But there's another team down the other end of the M62 in England, forgotten what they're called now, they also play in red. But the centres of Manchester and Liverpool compete. And so they compete. Liverpool will talk about the Beatles, Manchester will talk about Oasis, and they'll trade blows based on that. Similarly here, we've got city centres in the UK, they've become less important. COVID has killed a lot of it. Online shopping. I don't go into shops anymore, almost ever. And so we've had this trend that's been going on for years and years and years and years and years. So now we've got this City centre, different, but we've now got these sort of life centres that are becoming the sort of new lifeblood. And we've got this opportunity for people to go to them for different reasons and to sell people a journey through them through some sort of technology. So for people, what I'm saying is in FM, what we do is we answer the question, what do we need to do with people for them to get to the person or the people that they need to see and be happy when they get there and effective when they get there? So we feed them, we keep them warm or cool. The FM journey translates quite well into some of these shopping centre / life centres that we see. So answer the question, what should we do today? I've got 6 daughters. Now, there are not many people that are going to say that to you. And 2 of them are adopted. So in spite of my age, I've got 2 quite young daughters. I learned so much from them. What are we going to do today? I think, oh no, I've got to be creative again. So we can sell by answering that question. Competing through pathway experiences. So you get this sometimes, but you get it in England. There's a thing called centre parks. Has anybody heard of that? So centre parks is like a village experience where they have swimming pools, theatres, restaurants. And before you come, they send you a booking process. And for your children, you can book climbing experience 10:30 to 11:45. So this pathway is not new. It's being done in other asset classes really effectively. And for me, with little children still, it's wonderful to be able to watch their faces as they move from one exciting thing to the next. They know what they're going to do. Now, some people are going to say, but half the fun is spontaneity. So there are going to be people who are going to... Spontaneity, by the way, is like deciding what you're going to do now, rather than planning. There are people who like that. I understand that. So it's not going to be working for everyone. But you're going to need this competition, a 24/7 operation, and this is really important. Asset owners have to control the pathway. And which brings me back to what happened to me last night. I'm at the Ceylon pier, waiting for a boat back to the chat room hotel. And the boat comes, and instead of going back to the hotel, it heads off north up the river, and I'm thinking, oh wow. Looked at the timetable, sure enough it was going to pick people up from Icon Siam. We arrived there, and the boat was absolutely packed. So congratulations to Icon Siam, they've got half the chat room hotel there until 9:30 at night, so something's working really well. But the boat experience itself is outside the control of the asset owner. It's controlled by the chat room hotel. I have to say, it wasn't nice being packed in like sardines for 15 minutes to run back down the river to the hotel with all those huge party boats trying to knock us underwater. So control of the pathway is critical. And I'm not necessarily saying you can have control over everything, but you need to at least have standards. McDonald's, how do they control their quality? Through, it's franchised, but they have a manual. If you don't comply with the manual, you're out. So there are ways that we can control these pathways as well. Am I out of time yet? Am I okay? Just nobody wanted to go home anyway. We'll be here till 1 o'clock. So we need a compelling digital connection. I could talk forever on this. I won't. But let's just flip forward and back. I'm tired. I'm tired of using my fingers as my medium of connection to digital. Is anybody else tired of that? Doesn't it seem slow? There's got to be a revolution that's coming. And it's not wave your fingers in the air. It's not that. It's got to be worn technology. You've seen the technology where people can think and the hand moves. we're going to have to come to terms, maybe not, well, definitely not my generation, maybe some of your generation, come to terms with having some sort of implant to connect us to the digital world. And then we've got the question as to whether AI is then going to come in and we're all going to be taken over. But that aside, there has to be some compelling digital connection. I put in brackets app because it's what we think about now. We think about the digital world and connectivity. It's an app on your phone, isn't it? It's not the best, but it's what we've got at the moment. But you need to get people into a habit of using an application on their smartphone, whatever they've got. And you need a universal asset-wide booking and payment system. Now, we've got some of this in FM already. If you walk into some of the major London office buildings, as you walk in, the building will recognise you through your phone. If you have in your diary that you require a meeting room, it will allocate one for you automatically. So it exists a little bit, just not as well as I think it could, because I think it can become wider in terms of connectivity. There's a great, there's a great movie you can watch. It's not new. It's called Anon, A-N-O-N. Has anybody seen it? Oh, watch Anon. And if you get home tonight and you're so bored by me that you want to watch Anon, it's just an incredible vision of a world where everyone has perfect knowledge of everything and everyone else. A-N-O-N. So I can walk up to City Porn, and if I've never met City Porn, I can know his history. I know who he is, who he works for, whether he has a criminal record, whether his brother plays for Manchester United, boo. I can know everything I need to know about, well, no, I can know everything I don't need to know. In that world, it's a great movie, but I think what we can learn from that is that there is a desire to get to this other side, to this total connectivity, pushing AI to one side because it's a bit scary for everyone at the moment. But that sort of connectivity, and this, delivering a pathway through big data, through what we know, through what your history shows that you're going to want. And that means that the big data, the AI, is going to know that I don't go near Rolex shops, but I will spend money on an expensive car. So it'll know that if it wants to send me to a BMW showroom, they've got a good chance of catching me. But it's about selling that journey for me. And it has to be holistic. So I talked about the boat from the chat room. It has to be controlled. So tonight, I could sell you a journey from this place. Now, I could say to you, where are you going? I could arrange for an electric automated vehicle, which doesn't exist yet. But it sort of does in some parts of the world, doesn't it? I could arrange for a vehicle just right outside for you to get in, for you to be taken to the restaurant of your choice. And when you arrive, they know you're coming. You've already chosen your food, it's on the table. The person that you wanted to go with has come from the other side of Bangkok in the same way the two of you have met. And this is the point at which you've got this dynamic pathway. So you can enter into this pathway some changes, but otherwise it's got a destination for you. That destination could be home. That destination could be something else. It's almost like your life being explored for you, in a way. But a sort of a new idea of you giving, and this is the horrible word, some of the control of your decision making over to an AI system, as long as it pleases you, as long as you get some. Can I sell you a journey from this place which ends somewhere that you want to be, which ends in you settling down in bed tonight thinking that was a really good night? Somewhere that you've not thought of. Ideas on your phone, which you can press cancel if you don't feel well. So it comes from the ideas of FM, the idea that FM is a journey and not an experience, and you can carry that through all sorts of mixed asset classes, including your everyday life. And I think I've probably spoken long enough. So, do you want me to, City Paul, whoever's in charge? Are you the MC? Are you still the MC? So I've bored everybody to death for an hour now. How do you want me to play this? Right. Want me to sit down?
No.
No? Okay.
Right, thank you. I think it's quite a new approach to think about FM and to apply in the facility management in practice. And I would like to give you some summarize and pinpoint some key contents here. First, we have to manage our valuable user of customer of the building, and we understand that developing of space lead development to FM in practice. We need to defining core business, understanding business context, and related with the core of FM service. Is that right? Still correct?
Yes,
Thank you. We need to identify and characterize FM service supply chain to fit with the business process and ensure the value productivity of staff and core business. We need to create pathway and deliver value of service right place in the right time as well. And the key issue that we have to concern and to think about after this session, that the key is how can we align organization, people, and innovation into the right direction effectively, and how can we deliver FM value through user journey in specific, precisely as well, and how can we create and connect it and transform each our value facility to become a better city in the near future, and how can we digitalize our facility and FM service. Right, that's all.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. That's the pathway is just a shift in thinking. That's all.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, now in the final session, if anyone have a question, please raise your hand so I bring you a microphone. Anyone? ภาษาไทยก็ได้นะครับ ภาษาไทยก็ได้นะครับ
ตามใจแม่
Okay, I'm a student from year 5, and from the topic that you talk in the ending of the session is that like when the service is too good and it serves you before you want it. I've heard a stand-up comedy that it's about Amazon the logistic business that is now like is serving you the purpose of like the same day delivery and something like that, and they are like developing some AI to maybe order it before you know it, order it before you want it, or something like that. I'm not in the FM right now, so if I want to like serve the service or that kind of human need, where should I like track those fundamental things?
So what you're saying is, where does the big data come from? Is that?
I mean, like, it's a lot of human need right now, right? So I don't know which or what will work. So should I or how could I make an idea that it would be like 100% work?
Are you saying how can the technology tell you something that will 100% work?
Yeah.
Is that the question? I think as much data as you... Okay, let me go back. So we've got, in the basement of the Ministry of Defence, I've got a system that's been collecting data for about 10 years. Not secret, the fact that it exists. It's a condition-based maintenance system which is monitoring the condition of some of the really, really big plant in the basement of our armed forces headquarters in the centre of London, and it's predicting failure. So what this enables us to do, condition-based maintenance, is move away from the concept that you maintain something every 6 months, regardless of use, regardless of condition. You change washers, let's say, you oil, you change bearings, that sort of thing. Versus the new idea, and that is that we put sensors onto the equipment and we listen to the vibrations and we take the temperature into account, obviously the humidity and the air temperature around it, so we take all of those measurements as well. But we get to a point where if we collect enough data, we can predict when it's going to fail. This has existed for many, many years in the aviation industry. We've learned so much from the aviation industry. And I got onto about 15 years ago, maybe 10, I got onto a plane in Air France plane in Paris, Charles de Gaulle, flying to Singapore. And as soon as we took off the right-hand engine, this is a 777 twin-engine plane, we had a 13-hour flight ahead of us, heavy on fuel, bang, 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 bang from the right-hand engine. My expectation was, we're going to circle for an hour, dump fuel and land back at Paris, Charles de Gaulle. No. Because of the data that they collected on the G90, I think it was, General Electric engine that was on this Air France plane, it was Rolls-Royce. The Rolls-Royce engineers in the UK were able to enable them to tweak the engine. They knew that the engine wasn't going to fail, and we carried on to Singapore without having to interrupt. However, we can never be 100% sure. It's just that we think we're right. So collecting all the data in the basement of the Ministry of Defence, we're saying we don't think, based on all of the data that we've got, we're 99.99% sure that this failure is not going to happen. With aircraft, it might be a little bit more sure because obviously aircraft engine goes bang, people die. But the answer to your question, I think, is we can collect as much data as we want, and it's still theory. It's still collecting historical data. It doesn't predict necessarily completely accurately your own changes of direction, your own individual personality. The thing that AI, for me, is going to struggle to replicate is your independence of thought, your decision to ask that question. And I don't think an AI is anywhere near making that decision today to open up in a group, to ask a question about the validity of the collection of big data and whether it can predict your wants. So I think the simple answer is, I think in the same way that you get targeted ads when you're online, if you sign up for targeted ads, you get things that are relevant to you, but a lot of the time, because you've just bought a new pair of shoes, it still keeps trying to sell you a new pair of shoes because it doesn't realise you went and you bought them, hasn't picked that up. So it's misidentifying your needs through a need that you had before. And I think we'll still make those mistakes, but it's like anything else. You've got to get on the bike and start pedaling if you want to improve the quality of the big data and its ability to predict. Does that answer the question?
Yes.
Okay. Good question.
So it's like how anyway, even if like far enough, it's still a prediction, right?
That's totally a prediction. Yeah. And the day I know what you're going to do 100% would be frightening, wouldn't it?
Really not a question, just like refer back to the previous person that asked.
Yep.
Just to add on, and also like in FM professions, just now we talk about like physical assets, but in terms of like people aspects, that even more like difficult. I can guarantee to you, it's not even close to 90% that we can predict human needs or wants, expectation. You can go back, like, I'm working in FM as a service provider. Right now we can like commit to the SLA for preventive maintenance or even reactive. Maximum we can go up to 99%. But for like customer or user satisfaction, I think I can go up to 85. That's the best we can. Leaving like another 15%, it's really uncontrollable in our business, in the FM.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think the advantage we've got when we're talking about an asset is that we can know that people have to go there. So we've got some control over the way that the EasyJet example I gave. EasyJet know that people are going to get on their plane. So they can control the journey from entering the airport to getting on the plane. They can control that. But you're right, in everyday life, outside, when people leave here, we can't be sure that they're going to enter, other than exiting this building, we can't be sure. So totally, I think control of social lives is always going to be more about marketing. But what I'm suggesting is that the marketing that we target people with is more about targeting them with a journey in mind. Some people, not all, some people will prefer to go to the cinema and then decide afterwards. But if you can target people, if you can sell, particularly people with children, as long as you can sell people a day out that's made for them, you'll probably also make more money from them as well, I think.
I like the idea of like DKLIA too that you mentioned as well.
Yeah.
How are you going to control people not to drink more than 2 pints before getting on the plane?
I think so there's a tension, isn't there? This is it. The people behind the bar want you to drink 5, and the people on the plane. And there's 2 reasons why they don't want you to drink 5. Number 1, you shouldn't be flying if you're drunk. You'll be dangerous to the airports. But number 2, you use the toilet. So they don't want people to use the toilet because the more people use the toilet, it has to be cleaned and emptied more often. So the whole thing is literally sit down, do not move, and then do not drop paper on the floor. If you want to read, hold on to your newspaper or put it in the black bag as we walk down, but do not put anything on the floor. And if you noticed, some of the low-cost airlines have removed the pocket. The seat pocket's gone on Ryanair, so that there's no, as the cleaners come down, there's no fiddling, and also a plane can't leave until the safety card. Every seat has a safety card. So Ryanair removed the seat back pocket, stuck it on the back of the seat. The seat is hard. So that's 2 pieces of process engineering, which makes the cleaning of Ryanair planes more efficient than the cleaning of other planes. Yeah.
Still talking a little bit. And thank you for changing my perception about facility management completely. It's good. I mean, what you said about the design pathway is talking about the understanding and then predicting and forecasting what happens on the pathway. But it means nowadays we are moving towards the thing that's very difficult to handle is flexibility. But what is your point of view on facility management to deal with the flexibilities that we are going to move into?
Okay, so I mean, so if you're talking about, so I've got a picture that I use. I don't use pictures of Americans very often, but a picture of some American footballers. American football is a bit like rugby, but they wear all sorts of things in case they get hurt, which in rugby they don't. But they're sort of exercising, and it's about agility. It's about the ability to respond. So when we develop a service with an FM, we've got to be ready to be able to change it. I'll give you an example where it doesn't work. So I'm back to aeroplanes again. There's a company called Gate Gourmet in the UK. And Gate Gourmet supply all sorts of different train companies and plane companies. And one day there was a strike in Gate Gourmet, and they were unable to supply British Airways aircraft with with food, and quite a lot of British Airways flights were cancelled as a result of their inability to be. They had failed to manage their supply chain in a way that was agile. They should have had 2 or 3 different suppliers that they could have switched to. They'd failed to do that. But I think the thing about the pathways, one of the things I put up there was that it needs to be active, it needs to be dynamic, it needs to be able to move. And it's not just because the organisation may shift. The individual pathway can shift because things, as I was saying, the conversation I had with my family in your room, and I've got to be honest, if that conversation had taken place here in front of you, it probably still had to, because it was a really important moment for my eldest daughter. So I might have had to get my phone out and get everyone to cheer, because otherwise she'd have been really sad, because the time difference between you might find that hard to believe, but it would have been really good fun. So I think, I think we're always struggling with flexibility of FM services. We're always struggling with the fact that FM needs to bend and shape and dodge around as the needs of the different stakeholder groups. And if there are 200 people, as I said, 200 pathways, you can also break those people down into stakeholder groups, and each of those stakeholder groups will have sort of a subset of requirements that they need as they move through their journey. But you can break it down into the granularity with which you break it down. When you're going to go as far as you can and still maintain reasonable control, I think. But does that answer that? Good. Okay.
By 2050, the net zero energy and something like, as well as the green and building movement, in your view, how this movement expand the service of FM beyond the business money and people experience issue?
Okay, so City Porn, I apologise, I haven't picked that up completely. Can you say that again for me? Can you repeat that? Yeah. I'm so sorry, it's just accent.
I will try one more. In your view, how this movement, I mean the net zero energy buildings,
yep.
Green and building movement, how this movement expand the service of FM, beyond the business,
okay.
Innovation and people experiences.
Right. Okay. So you're right. There's a tension, I think, there's often a tension between what we want to do and what we should do, and a lot of the time the green credentials of the industry, particularly in the UK, are led by government intervention. So we follow, I think, government trends, government guidance, statutory legislation. And I think we're going to continue down the road of tightening to try and get to a point where our greenhouse gas emissions, whatever you want to call them, are damage to the environment gets to zero. But that has to be at the front of what we do. That's not the thing that I'm here to talk about tonight, but isn't it the most important thing that we could possibly talk about? And I sort of take the view, we changed the name of our school at UCL to the School of Sustainable Construction, because we wanted to make the point that sustainability in all of its forms runs through everything that we do. So any service or anything that I would think about providing would be about trying to deliver that service with as little impact as possible on the environment, and ultimately you're talking about getting to a point where we have no impact on the environment. And I think what we need is the scientists to help us out here. But isn't it incredible how we've, if you'd asked me 20 years ago if we would shift from, the Grab taxi that brought me here tonight was an MG, an electric MG. And I think if you'd asked me 20 years ago whether I would have been travelling in an electric car that quickly, and that it's quite common to see electric cars, 20 years ago I probably would have said I didn't think that was likely. 30 years ago, the published accounts of British Airways, I remember seeing the published accounts of British Airways, and they had this tiny little 3 green pages in this British, I was doing some work on airport management, And I remember opening it up and thinking, wow, I mean, the sustainability issues on British Airways are huge, and their end of year accounts have got 3 pages in there. And I thought, because there's no profitability for British Airways or an airport to actually move towards net zero, because there's no driver there, it won't happen. And again, wrong. Because if you fast forwarded 10 years from that point, about a third of and it's grown to a point where when we think about sustainability, we don't think of something there. We think of something right here, don't we? Something that's affecting us all. But I think FM is responding well to this. We have, I was at the FM Awards in central London 6 months ago, and one of the key speakers was condemning the British government for not being hard enough on the industry. Which I find incredible, but a speaker saying that the government needs to tell us off more, to tell us more not to do what we're doing. We need to be disciplined like children, which I think was quite interesting. Because our government, I think, is doing quite a lot compared with some. We're not perfect, but we're doing quite a lot. So, did I get the right question?
Yeah.
Okay.
นะครับอีกสักคำถาม2 คำถามมีครับแล้วก็เข้าสู่ช่วงสุดท้ายของวันนี้ครับ
So thank you very much for a fruitful discussion today. So what I love in this session is that it changed my perspective, maybe from construction management to think about more of facility management. So thank you. So my question is like following the link, because from your lectures, it sounds like we need more tailored solutions to the clients. But more and more people talk to me in the construction management field that the buildings or the assets or the built environment is not easily to be changed, or it can't be changed immediately. And moreover, people or the service sectors, they are reluctant to change their practice. Like they try to serve this way and they want to serve this way forever. They not want to change. So how can we deal with these kinds of dilemmas?
Thank you for the question. I've got a really good example of how you're absolutely right. People don't want to change. About, oh my goodness. The trouble is when you've been doing something for 30 years is you lose track of how long ago it was. About 15 years ago I did a project, this is Ministry of Defence, main building, Whitehall, this is, so picture the main hub. This is military, this is heavy security, this is a building that you can't enter unless you're security cleared by the government. So this is a big deal. In that building, we ran a sustainability project 15 years ago which looked at improving the way in which we managed our waste. If you get really bored, by the way, about 25 years ago, I wrote a paper about waste management at UK airports. So we were trying to improve on some of the terrible data that I found 25 years ago. So 10 years later, I'm working with the government, specifically the Ministry of Defence. And what we wanted to do is we wanted to get to a point where we put none of the waste from that building into a landfill site. And that's the ambition always, isn't it? That nothing is buried and can decompose. In order to do that, we were encouraging people to behave in certain ways. And we thought we're going to be dealing with highly educated, highly compliant people who are used to taking orders from the military. And so we thought we must be just pushing at an open door here, if that's an expression you understand. We must just be standing there and they'll be going, yeah, okay, we'll do what you want. So what we did was we tried, and this is not clever now, 15 years ago it was fairly new. We split the bins into different types of waste so that the waste could then be taken down, and some of it compacted and taken away and sold, so cardboard could be sold and we could make some money back. And then we'd have other items, plastics and cans, which we put through in a particular way. And of course now we just try and encourage people not to buy plastics and cans, to bring in recyclable. But 15 years ago, that's where we were. What we found was, after about 2 weeks, people got quite angry because what we'd done was we'd removed their safety blanket, which was the bin that sat by the desk. So what happened was, you get up, you go out, you buy your sandwich from the shop, you have your little walk, you come back, you sit down at your desk, you eat your sandwich, you drink your can of Coke, and you throw it in your bin, which is there. So quite a few people, when we removed their bin for the first time, just threw the rubbish on the floor in a building where I didn't think people would do that. And then when we encouraged them not to do that, some of the people were deliberately contaminating bins with food, which meant that, they were fighting against the change. And do you know what? You say, how do we deal with it? I think we deal with it the way my 4 birth daughters, not the little ones that I've adopted, but my older daughters dealt with it. When they were at primary school, they came back from primary school, so we're talking about 20 plus years ago, 25 years ago. So my oldest is now 33. So when they were about 6 or 7, I was not really into recycling, I'm afraid. I found it at home, I found it annoying, to be honest, to have to put things into different bins. And my children told me off. My children told me I wasn't to do that because I was destroying the planet. My children educated me. And I think that's what happened in that building. It's something of a generational thing. So I don't know, but we're pretty sure that the people who were doing the contamination were people who were probably my age now, about 60. People who are about 60 years old who just didn't want any change, because if you look into the theories of change management, people really frightened of change. They really can get really frightened of change. And I think if you're from a generation that's grown up with smartphones, with the internet, if you're from the generation that's grown up, you're sort of more used to change. So I can remember when I had 3 television channels, all terrestrial, no digital, no mobile phones. I remember what it was like to have to dial a phone like that and not always get connected. So when you come from a world like that, your perspective is very, very different to someone who was born with a Samsung phone in their hand. Because that massive change happened to me, but it didn't happen to most of you. And I think that perspective of the younger generation, the sustainability thing did not exist as a concept, as an idea, as a worry when I was at school. Lots of things didn't. So generational education. And the next thing that will happen is the next problem that we come across, it'll be the generation behind that drives the change. So I suppose, in short, I think it is young people's peer pressure that will change and continue to push sustainability. I'm not a big fan of the way Greta does things at all. I think often it's counterproductive. I think it puts people off. But there are people out there who say things that I value, who say things in the right way, that get everybody on board. And I think a lot of those people are younger than I am. And I think that's, young people, go them.
I think it's about time.